We're in late February 2023. You might be able to see on the camera that to this side of me, the forest looks fairly thinned, and on this side of me, it still looks fairly thick. This was roughly around where I left off on my last season, and I did a large block sort of in an L shape going this way and looping around, and now I've got to do over on this direction over here. Now, this is a really difficult time of the year to work because here in eastern Canada we have several feet of snow down now. I can still cut my hardwoods for firewood this time of year, but the wood is really hard to get out of here because of the deep snow, and sometimes even with the snowshoes on a day like this where it's warm, you'll sink down in quite deep in places. I've been up, to well above my knee already. And so if you start hauling logs through something like that, it's really difficult. It's almost easier to just leave your firewood wherever you cut it. Maybe put down a couple runners of just some, garbage softwood trees underneath them and throw your logs on top of those runners. And then you wait until the snow is gone and you come in and haul them out at that time. The other thing about cutting hardwoods is that if they're in a clump, you don't want to damage whatever tree you have left in that clump remaining. So if you can't get down to the base of the tree and do one nice clean cut, you really don't want to be doing a cut 2.5 feet up and then having to come back later after that tree's healed and do another cut to take off that last the base of that hardwood tree. And of course the base of the hardwood tree would be the thickest there, and you get the most amount of firewood out of it, and you don't want to leave a 2.5 foot section sitting there. So you basically, any hardwoods that are in clumps where you want to retain, one nice trunk and maybe cut out 2 or 3 others that are crowding it, you want to wait until the snow's gone to get to the base of those. And then also with the softwood trees, you don't want to cut those this time of year for the same kind of reason. If you can't get to the base of it, now you're losing a chunk of your log, and it could be a good piece of your log. So if I lose 2 feet of decent diameter log, that's 2 feet that I don't have to put on my blockhouse here in the spring when we go to build that. And I'm trying to get sections of log that are anywhere from 8 to 16 feet long in a nice straight section of softwood. So we're really limited on how much we can log this time of year. So what we do on days like this where I'm out and it's still light out, I'll go around and I'll start marking trees for cutting down in the future. I can mark both hardwood and softwood trees, and I also try to do my limbing this time of year because this snow is giving me an added 1.5 foot, 2 feet or more of height off the ground, which means I can go that much higher up my softwood trees and take the limbs off and clean them up really nicely. And in the future, that would probably leave enough headroom for horses maybe to come through and easily navigate through the forest without running into limbs. It also makes for better logs. Anytime I do take them down in the future, I won't have limbs for, the bottom 8 feet or more of that log. So this is what we're into today. We're just going to go around with whatever daylight is left, and we're going to mark some trees and do a little bit of limbing if there's any to be done, although I think this block of woods in particular, I think I've gone through and limbed it all probably on a previous year. So it's more or less just marking trees. And I can take down some of the garbage trees in here as well. If I have stuff that's, this kind of diameter and dead, we can just knock those down as we go and start to thin out the area so that when we come back at the appropriate time to cut these trees down, it's going to be easy to walk around. The trees will be marked. We'll know exactly what we're doing, and we can even come in here in the nighttime with our headlamp on and do the cutting if we're confident with what we've marked. So I'll grab the camera and you can come along with me and we'll start marking trees tonight. Okay, so here's the block that we're going to work on tonight. You can see there's a few trees marked in there. The one straight ahead of the camera here, if you look up, you'll notice that the crown of it splits right up in here. And so that's the reason that one would have been marked. This birch tree sitting here has those mushrooms on it, so it's dead. And that one then will likely come down And we're going to work our way through here and mark everything that we can tonight. And if we can reach up a little bit higher and take off some more branches in those trees, we'll do so. If we look back over here, there you can see how much the forest thins when we turn in that direction. That was from last year's efforts. And then as I pan through here, you'll see the forest start to get tighter as we get into this little block here. Now on a small tree like this, I'll be careful of just how high I do limb, because it really doesn't have much of a canopy established yet. And so you don't want to take off, major limbs that can help this tree to grow. I'll try to take out any rough cuts that I did previously. So if I have little nubs of branches sticking off out of a tree that I was kind of, rushing around cutting, I'll go back through and really smooth the trunk of the tree out. This one is marked to come down already because it's got a really tiny crown. It actually still is alive up there at the top, but it's only got a small crown. And I think your fir trees should have about 30% of the height of them should be crown in order to be considered a healthy tree. So we'll take this one down out of our way right now. There. Now, I can't haul my brush this time of year for the same reason that I can't haul my firewood. And so I tend to just make piles right where I'm working. And then I'll come back at another time and spend a day or two to clean up. This spring when the snow's gone, I can just come and start hauling these out and get them to whatever fence line I want to take them over to. Also, I'll come back at that time and the 2 feet of tree that's underneath the snow right now that I didn't cut off, I'll have to do a second cut in order to cut that right down to the ground. Because you don't want to be tripping over things when you're back here, especially working with a chainsaw. And so I always make sure I cut off my softwood and hardwood trees really low to the ground. I sometimes look them over to see if there's a 2x4 that I could get from it, something of that diameter, but I wouldn't say so. Now, there's 3 trees I just dropped right here. Put your butt ends facing the same way, so that when you come along later and you want to grab these up and haul them out somewhere, they're a lot easier to haul than if they're crisscrossed and laying, perpendicular to each other. So just as a hint, anything you cut down, try to lay everything facing the same way and their butt ends facing the same direction. Here's what we just cut down. If we look to the left here, we have another fir tree, and looking up, broken top right up there. So this one here we know now can come down. And I'll show one more species here today. Now, I doubt this little tree is ever going to reach the canopy, but they say just for biodiversity out here, because there's no other cedar trees around, we're going to mark this one to keep it. I don't know that cedar really is going to do anything. It looks pretty bleak. When it's the only tree in an area, very likely it's not very suited for this area. That one, if you look up, it's easy to see that it's dead. There's nothing there. But it might actually be a tree that birds can tap into and use as a wildlife tree. So because it's not overly tall, there's probably not as much risk of that breaking and falling on someone's head. And it's a pretty decent diameter. I will probably leave that as what they call a snag tree, just as something in the forest to attract wildlife to it. So, and also because it's dead, it's not stealing nutrients from any of the surrounding trees around it. So it really doesn't hurt anything to keep it. The only thing you have to watch out with your snag trees, of course, is, you know, the danger they pose to people if that thing were to break off. But, you know, I can assess that, and it's got a little bit of wiggle to it, but it's not too bad. So we'll keep this around for a couple years, and maybe it'll help the birds in the area. I think woodpeckers might like these snag trees. Okay, so here's the snag tree that we just marked right there. To the right of that, we have a clump of fir trees. You can see we've got a fairly good diameter one running up here, but I can see that that one has a broken top, and hopefully I'll get a decent log out of that. That's got probably a 6 or 8 inch diameter to it. We're going to lose this large trunk here, but right here we have one with a large trunk, and this one does have a top, as well as the one over here. So these are the types of fir trees that I'm hoping, if I leave for a couple more years, they are going to drop seed down here for the next generation of trees. And this little one here, therefore, in the middle, this one has barely any canopy at all. As you look up through, that one has to come down. Right here is a great example of a seed tree. This one has a really great diameter to it. It's got a solid top, nice and straight. We're going to keep this guy, hoping that it'll seed something in the future. This little one next to it is growing right up into its canopy, and it's just crowding it. So this is the kind of thing that will get out of our way. So you can see I'm keeping a mix of both softwood and hardwood, and that is in part because the hardwoods each fall, when they lose their leaves, those leaves drop, and that actually, you know, makes some fertilizer for all the trees to grow healthier. If you were to leave nothing but evergreen trees out here in your forest, nothing drops down each year, and you don't have anything really to replenish the soil. So I tend to think the evergreen trees pull nutrient out of the soil. The hardwood trees drop a lot of nutrient back into the soil. So you want to have a mix of both, ideally in the canopy. Softwood trees in order to give you some protection overhead. Hardwood trees for the leaves that they drop and for the firewood that they provide. Yeah, so I'll just take you for a quick walk through now of what we've done, and you can kind of get a drift of my thought process in here. So again, small birch coming down. That's a gray birch, because we have a nice maple tree here that we're going to keep. We're going to get those branches of that maple tree down so that they're not crowding. We're going to get rid of this tree here because it has a split top up there. We're going to keep this tree here because it's tall, it made it into the canopy, and it has a crown to it, even though it's not a very good crown. Then going this way, we've got a really small fir tree, which does have a decent crown, but it's crowding this white birch. So we're going to keep the white birch. We're going to get rid of that fir tree. We're going to get rid of these other two small white birch. We're going to keep the maple right here in front of me. Because we're keeping that maple, we're going to get rid of this maple that's crowding it here. That has less of a top to it. Okay, as we go this way, you can see this one here is going to come down because it has a bad top. And we're going to keep one of these gray birch trunks here and get rid of the other one. So that's one little block that we just came through together, trying to determine what we keep and what we get rid of. And when we're done, you can see from blue ribbon to blue ribbon, we've got maybe 8 feet, another 8 feet, Another, 6 feet between those two. Probably 8 feet between these. So it's coming down. We're going to thin this down as best we can on this pass. And then I always see other things later that I can, come back and usually take out a few more trees as I get a better feel for the area. So things to keep in mind again, you want to have diversity of species. So more than one type of evergreen tree and hardwood tree. In this forest, we have maple, which is our preferred hardwood, then white birch or paper birch, and then we have gray birch, which is our least desirable. The gray birch is definitely a pioneer species, so it's probably not going to ever grow back again, and it is something that would naturally be supplanted by shade-tolerant trees like maple. And so there's no real harm in taking that stuff out. I try to leave some of it around here, to hang on for as long as it will, but eventually it's going to go and it probably won't come back regardless, because this will become dominant maple for hardwood. And then on the hardwood trees, again, they drop leaves, they drop nutrient, so you want to have a certain amount of those. But if you only had your hardwood trees, you wouldn't have any cover up above you. And so it's nice to have some evergreen trees as well in your block of woods. Of your evergreen trees, pine is probably the nicest around here. Cedar is a great tree, but there's not many in this block of woods. Fir and spruce. I guess spruce would be the next one that I would choose, and then fir would be the last one that I would choose to keep. And then of those, you're looking at things like spacing. You want to have them not crowding each other, but not so far apart that they don't want to grow up straight. So you want to keep some kind of a, maybe 8-foot range, something like that. I usually look at about 6 to 12 feet. And then you also want to look at the health of their canopy. Do your evergreen trees have a third of them that are decent canopy, or less than that means that they're not a very healthy tree? You want to look at signs of distress in the tree, injury, a broken top, a split top, anything like that. That would be a growth deformity that isn't very desirable. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of an idea of how we're selecting our trees through this block of woods, and also what we're doing this time of year when we have snow on the ground. You really got to work with Mother Nature, and you kind of do what you can with each season and the type of weather you're getting. We've been showing up for work here with the YouTube channel for about 3 years now, and it's been a long haul and it's a lot of work. It does slow me down nights doing this with the filming, but I enjoy it, and I'm hoping by sticking with it that our subscribers will stick with us, and over time we're going to grow our subscriber base. So we greatly appreciate it if you hit that button and subscribe to the channel, like our videos. And it's tough for content this time of year, but we're going to get through the winter time, and we'll have a lot of cool building projects for you this spring. So thank you for watching.